So they're going to want to play into that. And I'd actually say if you're from the US or UK, put in the facts, put in the city rather than just say America, just say New York or say London, these trigger cities.
Or Texas. Everyone knows Texas. For some reason.
The girls' eyes are going to be like, oh, okay.
SAR Experience.
Привет из Одессы. Welcome back to another episode of the Vodka Vodcast. I am here once again with James Tusk, a lot of you know, and we're enjoying a shisha. We're hanging out here in the Palais Royal Garden in Odessa, right
Very
beside
good shisha, by the way.
Yeah, one of my favorite places for shisha, with one of my favorite Kaidan Sheikh. Kaidan Sheikh, which is the shisha guy. It's a special profession here. I'm going to make a video about
it's like
shisha.
it's like the prestige of being a Parisian waiter. It's kind of like a real thing. Like it's a real career choice. Your parents are like, okay, doctor, lawyer, or shisha man, and it's a serious conversation that's on your household.
People are very proud if they have this profession here, and rightly so, because they make amazing shisha. So we just made some other vodcasts. Of course, go check them out. Check out James's channel, gonna link that below. Also, the day game video that we made in St. Petersburg very recently, very interesting. The full version is on James's channel. I'm gonna make one when this vodcast episode goes out. It'll probably be already up on my channel, where you're gonna see a shortened version with my analysis of how I thought I got on. But it was very interesting. Basically, James is a specialist in day games, approaching women during the day, cold approach without knowing them, stopping in the street or somewhere else.
And without being the antithesis of what we're about to do, without being drunk as well.
Exactly, but this is the Vodka Podcast. Yes, it's not the best vodka, but anyways.
The warmer it gets, the worse it gets, for sure.
So, with that out of the way, so in today's video, we're going to discuss a big question that comes up when all my clients, and also for James, is language. Now, I speak Russian and Portuguese, because we're going to do some stuff in Brazil together. So I don't face this issue. I can switch between both languages, obviously English or Portuguese or Russian very easily. But a lot of you ask me, especially when I get my new clients on the phone on a strategy call, is am I going to be okay? Because I don't speak Russian for the former Soviet Union, countries like Ukraine, Belarus, or Russia. And I always tell them, listen, I can help you with the solution to that problem, right? Because obviously it would be better, ceteris paribus, if you could speak both. Spasibo. There you go. So at least
he's making his money.
Yeah. There, actually, you do need to be able to speak Russian to be able to speak to the shisha guy, but that's not actually what we're going to talk about in this video. So James does not speak Russian. He also doesn't speak Portuguese for these trips, but he has had a lot of success. So I think it's very good for those of you who are interested in coming here to also get his input, and I will provide input from what I've seen with my clients and my friends who don't speak Russian. Mm-hmm. So you have traveled, just to recap for everybody, to Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus a lot in the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm here almost the entire time. Overall, what would you say? Can you meet beautiful women in this region using only English, and what are the kind of difficulties you need to overcome?
Yeah, you can. But again, if you're here for a short time, you should be screening out girls that don't speak. If they don't speak English, you should be screening them out.
Exactly. So what he means by screening them out is what I advise my clients all the time. It's like, listen, you start speaking to a girl, and she cannot really communicate with you. Her English skills are not enough for a basic conversation. Move on.
The one exception to that would be if she's very, very eager. It's a double-edged sword. If she's very, very eager to practice her English, it either means she wants to practice her English for free and has no desire to actually get with you, but wants free English lessons, or actually that rare unicorn of a girl is where they do want to speak to you and they want to practice their English and they do actually like you. And if it's that case, even if they don't speak much on the initial meet, then you should probably pursue it. And that's kind of a gut feeling thing. I guess that's just case by case, or blow by blow would be a better analogy.
Quite literally blow by blow later on.
Your gut feeling on that. But I guess that comes with experience of cold approach. You know, you can't fake those. There's a brilliant book by a guy called Joe Navarro, which is an ex-FBI agent. He talks about reading body language, but it's something you can't fake. You can see that sort of thing.
Yeah, in the eyes.
In the eyes. And that also help you for the scams that many of our clients have been stung by in the past, that you help them avoid.
Yeah, exactly. So, to build on that, what I normally say is, like, if they don't speak English, move on. Of course, if it's really exceptional, like, it was really, really enthusiastic, you can try and pursue it. The other situation that I've noticed that does work is, say, you come with me and we're hanging out and I actually have a relationship already with her girlfriend, a close friend, then the level of trust is going to be extremely high, and we're going to be in some situation, the four of us together, then probably we're going to be able to make something happen if the girl is really interested in you. Obviously, if she's just wants a free English teacher, then you should also just say bye bye, baka,
But
baka,
that's
and move on.
going to be you're going to be able to tell that, because I think the key to that is just try and escalate on them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily try and kiss them, but just touch on the leg, you know, deliberately touching them, because if they're really not keen, they're going to make it clear that they're not, and then
Yeah.
you can screen them out off that basis.
Exactly. So basically the rule is, unless it's one of those two situations, then you should move on, because you've got a huge opportunity cost. Like, there's so many beautiful women in this region. Like, you don't want to be spending your time pursuing someone desperately where it's just not going to happen in all
And if
probability.
you don't have much free time like us, you can't afford to spend a month chasing these girls. That would
Exactly.
be great. They're a great prospect for a longer term and a level, but if you're just on that typical 7 to 10 day trip, you don't have time for it.
Exactly. I would say even if you're staying a month, to be honest, it's probably not worth it. Oh,
Here he
We're gonna
comes. He's earning his money.
exactly. So we're going to have our shisha updated.
Всем привет. Ребят,
Yep.
подписывайтесь на канал. Не ставьте лайки.
Super. So just so you know, this is my favorite shisha guy in all of Odessa. That's why we hang out here. Спасибо.
Yeah, cool man.
Прекрасно. Спасибо.
Great stuff. Great service.
So
There you go.
we're back in action. He cooled down the shisha there, it was a little bit hot. So, and I have to get back my train of thought exactly because the shisha is so good. And we've had already 2 vodkas in the middle of the day.
And you're topping up, mate.
Yeah. So, yeah, here in, that's basically to do with what we advise our clients and also what James advises. So give me maybe a little bit more background about how your interactions have gone overall, just using it. How you found the level of English? I think that's one of the most important things. How would you describe the level of English compared to other parts of the world you travel to?
I mean, obviously, if your Scandinavias, your Germanys, your Netherlands, you know, the level of English is actually better than most Liverpudlians. So there you go. But over in Eastern Europe, I'd say Odessa, because it's kind of a touristy place and because of the fact that Instagram has now played a big role in that, and you get a lot of kind of obviously Arabic men who would speak English, and you get a lot of tourists from the US and UK now. The level of English is higher, but I think the key point to make about the key USP you have as a guy coming here, your value add is understanding the culture and also speaking Russian. For them, it's a big sign of trust. Like, they just inherently, you know, the cultures, without stereotyping too much, the former Soviet Union culture, the Cold War culture is quite cold.
Yeah.
So if you can speak Russian, you automatically gain brownie points with them, and they're more, you know, they're more receptive to you. They just trust you a bit more because you bother to actually learn Russian, and you bother to, like, they put that down as, okay, he can be kind of trusted because he speaks the same language. It's that basic.
Yeah, and also when you learn a language, like I would say, you have to learn about the culture. So you already have that cultural understanding to a higher level. And obviously then what I advise that even if you just learn basic Russian, at least open a Russian and then you can switch to English. I would say overall, this summer in Odessa, the girls I've been with in general, because my client who was with me pointed this out. He was like, yeah, you wouldn't have not have had anything with this girl because she doesn't speak good enough English. Of course, she could speak basic, but it just boosted that level of trust.
Sure.
But there were other girls I've been with who are, you know, model internationally. They all have to speak very good English because they've modeled a few years abroad. They all speak perfect English. They were also, you know, you probably would have made no difference to me or you, to be honest, because they spoke English so well. But it does add something extra, of course, if you can speak Russian. So that's Ukraine. I think because there's so many sex tourists, unfortunately, come to Ukraine, and it has that unfortunate reputation, which is not true. I don't think girls are. I do another video about whether they're easy here, and I said no overall. You can go and watch the full episode on my podcast. I'll link it below. So I think in Ukraine, coming as just a pure English speaker, as opposed to being able to speak Russian, it is something you're going to have to overcome in the beginning. James pointed out that what he does is he screens out the girls who are local in Odessa, because this is the big city that attracts the most sex tourists, we'll say, and then looks for girls who are on holidays here, down from Kiev, down from another provincial city, down from Belarus. A lot of Belarusians here this summer, and those girls are here to have fun, and they're going to actually just love the fact of meeting someone who's far on holidays.
It's
a
true,
romantic
you know,
story for
you,
them.
You
So
can't underestimate. We always think about, we're worrying about our own fears and anxieties and blah 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 when we're cold approaching, but never underestimate what kind of emotional story the girl's going to build about you. You know, for a lot of these women, they've heard of this place called London, and they think, oh, it's like, we know the inside scoop, which is a smoggy shithole, and hence why we're not there. But these girls will build it up. They've seen James Bond movies, all this stuff. You know, they've seen the red buses, they've seen the phone boxes, they've seen the taxis. You know, they've heard about the Queen. For them, it's kind of a fairy tale to meet a guy from there. You know, just to tell their friends. Again, that Instagram culture of let me impress everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to want to play into that, and I'd actually say if you're from the US or or UK, put in the facts, put in the city rather than just say America, just say New York or
Yeah.
say London, these trigger cities.
Or Texas. Everyone knows Texas for some reason.
The girls' eyes are going to be like, oh, okay. And even if they don't speak that much English, they're going to be intrigued to meet you.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. So definitely that's your USP, as we like to say in the marketing
And
world.
I'd say from Minsk, actually, I was just thinking about it as you were talking. Minsk is kind of like Odessa was 10 years ago. When you go and open a girl in English in a club and she's like a little bit drunk and feeling a little bit friendly, her eyes are like big. She's like, London? Really? You know, it's a real cool thing because the city hasn't been overrun yet by tourists. So again, we talk about Minsk being a kind of gold mine, and I don't want to promote it too much because we'll be out of business. But if you are looking for a kind of old school experience you're not going to get in Ukraine and Russia, go to Minsk, go to Belarus.
So to build on that, because I was born in Ireland, so I'm always honest and candid, not just with my clients, also with girls when I meet them. So I'm not going to be able to say I'm from London, I'm from New York. And Ireland is not that well known, to be honest.
Yeah, but
So-
we all know your line is the second
Yes,
second
exactly.
most famous guy. The
Unfortunately,
amount of times I've heard you whip that one out, but it works every time. You know,
Yes.
it's a fresh audience every time.
so basically, because my name is Connor, and everybody had a huge problem with understanding how my name is pronounced in the beginning, especially 5 years ago. And I noticed with Uber drivers here, they would say, Connor, Conor McGregor. I would da ladna, yeah, whatever, right? So I realized that this name is actually pretty well branded, actually been called Connor. So I always tell them, hey, I'm like Conor McGregor. Obviously, I don't look like Conor McGregor whatsoever. And I don't talk like him because I don't have a very Irish accent.
Well,
but
you didn't used to live in a caravan either. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure.
either.
Times are tough, but not that tough.
Not that tough. But yeah, I respect the fact that he went from zero to hero, and it's quite laudable. So definitely I'm able to ride in the back of that. So if you're also Irish and you're coming here, definitely play up on the Conor McGregor thing. They will have heard of at least of Conor McGregor. But if you're from another, obviously if you're not able to say New York, London, or something very recognizable, just find something that's interesting. Like I recommend to my Latin American clients who come, like that is a huge positive reaction in general because of the dancing, the culture, and like Brazil is known as being very sexy. Definitely look for something that you're going to be able to say and brand yourself as. If you're not going to be able to play on like being able to speak Russian, if you're going to have to use English, don't be like. I'll give a good example. So I was standing last summer with actually a Jewish businessman here who's quite well known. He had two models with him, and he invited me over. We're just actually standing out on a terrace because he wanted to discuss some business with me. And you know, these French guys have been staring at the girls. First of all, you shouldn't stare for like 10 minutes at girls because you're just gonna look like I would say a beast of prey rather than anything else. But anyways, finally one of them got the courage to come over with a very stilted English and a very heavy French accent. Do you speak English? Worst opener in the world, right? They're standing, like, be socially savvy, right? First of all, because they're standing with some guy who's got high status. Do you think these girls are going to turn around to some gringo and say, oh yes, I would like to ignore the powerful, important, rich businessman beside me who invited me here and speak to you, someone with ostensibly no value to me, and the easiest way to get rid of you is no, I don't speak English.
Even
Go
though
away.
they've been listening to you speak English for the last.
Well, we were speaking Russian, but these girls
okay.
speak perfect English. They're models. They model abroad. Of course, they speak perfect English. But if you go over with that opener, believe me, the easiest way to get rid of you is just like, "Niet, no, I don't. Nie понимаю. I don't understand you. Go away." So definitely be a bit more creative on your approach. If you have to, you don't speak Russian, at least open in Russian. Just say, "Hey, привет." Be friendly. Don't start off with "Do you speak English?" That's one of the worst openers in the world.
Can you go with the CAC dealer? How are you doing? Is that
Kek
a
dela?
kind of thing?
Normally you don't really say that in Russian, to be honest.
Okay.
I always say like start with some sort of observation about something interesting about the girl. Like if you're going to approach a girl, you should be interested. There should be something interesting about her. Otherwise, why are you talking to her? So at least find that and just
But would you
pick that
occasionally
interest.
open in English, or do you always open in Russian?
I always open in Russian personally. And maybe the girl even answers me in English because she realizes I'm a foreigner, and maybe we even continue the entire conversation in English, and maybe
Okay.
even we go home together and we only speak English. But I just by default always open in Russian, just to distinguish myself from the hordes of horny sex tourists who come here who are
And
going to
that's
open
the
it.
same in any of the formats, or you?
Yes, I just open in Russian. But I'm confident, obviously, that I can continue in Russian if necessary. My clients, I always get them to also just say hi, at least in Russian. And even if they have to switch to English, just do that. But that's my advice, to just don't, this is like the worst opener in the world, because unless she's some English language groupie who's desperate to, practice her English, which will be then, you may end up just be a free English teacher than anything else. That's just not, you don't provide any value. You're basically asking her, hey, I have to think, do I speak good enough English too? Is this guy interesting enough for me to continue in a foreign language without any reason he hasn't provided any reason to be of value to me. So I just think that's a very, very poor opener, and I'm sure that you agree with that. That's not how you recommend to open in general. So we talked a lot about Ukraine. Maybe give a short synopsis of why speaking English is probably easier. I guess you're going to go for in Russia and in Belarus.
Yeah, I mean Belarus purely for the fact that Minsk, obviously, they've opened their borders. It's now a 30-year visa-free. 30-year, I wish. 30-day visa-free entry. So for the year. So I mean, it's massive novelty for them to practice their English. A lot of these girls are not stupid. With the advent of more globalised communication, they realise if they want to do something other than become a babushka on the street selling a piece of bread, they've got to practice English and get abroad. And also the kind of girls that we're hitting on in terms of age, 20 to 25, younger generation at university, they're going to speak more English anyway. So they're going to use it as an opportunity to combine with the fact that it's not very touristy and they want to meet foreigners. They're going to be receptive to speaking English. St. Petersburg, I think, again, playing on that kind of stereotype of them being the second city and wanting to come across as more friendly than Moscow. I think that's probably another reason why English is more acceptable to open in. But Ukraine, it is hit and miss, I'd say, more so than the other two.
Okay, perfect. My experience with my clients in Belarus is definitely it's the most open, just because there's so few foreigners. In St. Petersburg, it's a beautiful city. It's amazing. I'm going to have a vlog that's actually going to be finished today, so it'll already be up on the channel. Go check that out. We were there for the White Nights. Huge number of tourists, even if they need visas in general. Of course, James and I got around the visa because we were clever enough to buy tickets for European games.
And that's a point. And before we forget, they've got the European football. UEFA
2020
is there.
But the problem with that is, like, a ticket for the football match, I'm sure is going to cost a significant amount of money. So it's not as good, but definitely you can obviously get around the visa.
It's still probably an option, isn't it? If we
I think
the
visa is cheaper than buying the ticket for the
Do you
football
reckon?
game. Yeah, because I mean, how much is a football? I don't
No,
go
but
to
in
football
terms of,
games.
in terms of effort,
for instance, okay, you don't have to drop off.
you don't have to do anything. Basically, you just turn up with your ticket.
That's true for next year. After that, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has promised that you'll be able to do everything electronically and just pay the money and get it immediately.
That helps from going sitting in a stuffy embassy. With
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the big hassle for me when I travel. Is like I don't want to leave my passport in an embassy for a week or have to pay expedited.
And also just have to that downtime that of having to go there.
Yeah.
It's just fucking ridiculous.
Because here in Odessa, the general consulate is actually closed for Russia. You can't get a visa here anymore, I think. Actually, that's Belarus, they closed it, but maybe actually Russia can still get it. I shouldn't complain. But in most cities, most countries, you have to go to the capital. Maybe you're not there. You got to take a complete trip. Actually, for British citizens, I know that if you're in normally they make you go back to London. If you got a British passport. I always say I'm Irish because I have dual nationality and everything. So because Ireland does not have a Russian embassy, they allow me to get the visa in another embassy outside of obviously Ireland or the UK. But I know if you say you're British, then they will be like, well, you go to London. So while you're going to fly to London from Kiev just to get your visa to go to Russia, like, it's just a pain in the ass. And if you don't live in London, you're going to pay for a hotel or apartment for a few days while you wait for it. It's a huge inconvenience and expense. So let's see if the Russian president follows through on that, and you'll be able to do everything electronically by 2021. January 1st, he promised. So we'll see next year if that happens. The thing about the European Games was that we paid what, €3 for each ticket. I had to buy 2 of them because I came back, but basically it was a €3 investment, and then you had a visa.
Very cheap.
Yeah, so that was like a no-brainer to get. But definitely look forward to that next year. I would say Minsk, they just love foreigners so much, and even if they speak really pidgin English, just very basic, they're going to be delighted to practice it and speak it. So I think definitely opening in English is no problem there. You can actually vet very quickly, even if they're interested in meeting a foreigner, which is probably about half the girls, to be honest. In Russia,
you can just tell. It's a great point, actually, just while you're on it. But even if you say hello to a girl in the street in Minsk, you can tell by her automatic reaction, is she, even if she doesn't speak English, is she willing to is it a good thing for her? Is she has she associated emotionally something good with that or not? You say hello, you look good, and she's going to understand. Even if she doesn't speak anything, she's going to understand what that is. And you can just tell by the way her face kind of reacts, is it game on or game off? And so it's a good way of screening girls, again, straight away.
100%. So this is a good trick that James has just outlined if you want to just vet very quickly whether she's interested in foreigners or not. But overall in Minsk, it's the level of English. That's what I actually wanted to ask you. How did you find the English level skills? Like once we get over that initial introduction or opening, how did you find them in general in the three countries?
Amongst the younger population, it was high actually. It was surprisingly high. I was actually quite
Yeah, in
surprised.
St. Petersburg, you were very surprised by the level of
St.
English.
Petersburg, but also in Minsk, I was actually pretty impressed with the younger generation. Older generation, not so much. But again, are we really targeting them as the horny young men we are?
Probably over 40 we're not so interested in,
No.
for sure. So, yeah, and that's something that he made a very good point about, is the fact that if the girl is young and ambitious, then definitely English is a huge advantage for her to learn. So she's definitely going.
It's amazing, isn't it? They just see one camera and suddenly it's like, oh, social proof.
Actually, screw all this language stuff. I mean, just have a big camera and sit out with it, and then
and
attract
a
loads of-
phallic-looking mic,
Yes.
and it's game on.
Exactly. All the suggestion we need is right in front of us. So overall, definitely, if you have to rely on English, I would say that Belarus is the easiest because they're friendliest to foreigners. St. Petersburg, definitely very positive reaction. Girls are more intellectual there. They pride themselves on being more open than the other parts of Russia. In Moscow, how did you find it?
English levels low, but
So tough.
again, if you meet the right girl that's travelled, again, a bit more money there, so the chance of a hot girl travelling is higher. So if you open and approach hot girls, you're going to get a lot of blowouts, but then there's going to be one that's like, yeah, I've been to London, and they just want to talk about their experience, So it can be positive.
Very good.
But generally speaking, English levels are lower, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say on a worldwide level, I saw some stats on this. They put it in category 4 out of 5 across the world in terms of level of English in this region. So that's everywhere: Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Obviously, you have differences. If you go to countryside, forget it. If you ever watch Mr. Bald,
4 out of 5 being good or bad?
bad.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
one of
that
the
makes
lowest.
sense.
So compared to Central Europe, maybe you have some experience in Central Europe. The level of English is way higher in Central Europe than it's going to be here.
Massively.
If you go to countryside here, you can almost forget using anything other than Russian or Ukrainian in this city. Or
But again, that's your USP because you're able to go to these other cities and you've got some. You were telling me off camera some funny stories, but positive and negative. Where even it's the equivalent of me going to a small US town,
Yeah.
walking in and being like, I'm English, and all the guys even want to buy me shots, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about the guys either want to be your best friend during the daytime or they want to fight you.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
massively polarizing. But
Yeah.
again, if a guy's with you because of the fact you speak Russian, because you've gone to these cities and know the good venues, it's it's a real positive. You can have a really polarizing experience in the best possible light. Hopefully you don't get your head cut off.
Well, we'll see what happens in future trips to Gomel.
Well,
So basically, I was telling James off camera, I went to Gomel, and there the guys who were more dynamic and more interesting, who traveled or had a cool job or had money, they were really enthusiastic to hang out with me. Some spoke some English, even if they didn't, and they just spoke Russian. They were really friendly to me, and they invited me in the group, drinking, everything. But then I had a few issues with guys who were not so cool or dynamic and maybe more desperate to meet girls, and they were very aggressive towards me because obviously I was there with some pretty locals. And actually, I had one funny instance where the guy was very aggressive and drunk, and obviously I spoke in Russian in the interaction, and he was pretty close to punching me, I would say, at that stage, just because he wasn't going to get in with the girls. And he actually switched the conversation to Belarusian, which is a language that's not really so close to Russian. It's the other official language of Belarus, and very few Belarusians speak it properly, less than 10%. And he switched the conversation to Belarusian. But fortunately, I had actually been invited to Belarus last year for 10 days to learn Belarusian. So I have, at least I understand everything. I can't reply very fluently, but basically I counteracted his AMOG attempts by because he was basically trying to drag the girl off and insult her, basically, what are you doing with this foreigner? And I was like, yeah, because she's with me. And I just grabbed her hand and said, yeah, and by the way, obviously I speak Belarusian as well. So then the guy was silent. They kind of diffused him enough to leave and get rid of him and his buddy by speaking Belarusian. So there, as James pointed out, in these smaller towns that I think it's very hard to go to if you don't speak Russian, just because a girl who's maybe living there and hasn't moved, she hasn't had much practice of speaking English, and she has no need for it. Another small anecdote is that I met some girls who were actually studying tourism in Gomel, and they didn't. One of them spoke a little bit English, but that's also because she modeled. Again, if you model and you have that ambition to go abroad, you have to learn English realistically, or you're going to have to learn English very quickly, even if you go to China, because that's going to be the lingua franca there. And I asked them, so what language do you study? And they were like, Russian. That's what we need for tourism in our town. So there's there's no international tourism, so they don't need English to actually do their job. So just be cognizant of that if you don't speak Russian, then definitely focus on those main cities. You're going to have a lot more difficult if you go to a provincial town. So that's just another tip, that if you are thinking of going to Kherson, for example, it's a cool town. but the level English is going to be non-existent if you go there. And I had a lot of fun in Kherson actually, but you know, any of the girls I was with, they only spoke Russian or Ukrainian, so just kind of like focus on those. Don't buy into someone tell you, oh, this town over here is really cool. It's cool for them if they speak Russian, basically. So I would say to kind of, I think we should probably summarize a little bit what we've talked about in this video. If you are going to come here and rely on English, which is going to be basically nearly all our clients in general.
Do you ever get Russian speakers?
I have
Very rare.
never had anyone who spoke good Russian who...
Did you ever have anyone from the former Soviet Union, as a matter of fact? This doesn't have to be edited, I'm just interested.
No. I'm thinking because some Israelis speak Russian because they're either maybe born in Ukraine and then they want to come back, but they speak it maybe with their grandma because they grew up speaking Hebrew. But these guys, I didn't bring them around in person. I had them on the phone. I also do some online consulting, so I just kind of, because they also knew Ukraine pretty well, so they were pretty comfortable coming here. They spoke okay Russian, but that's as far as they get. I think my main focus is helping, obviously solving those problems, right? So you don't have to travel on your own. You don't have to worry about the language barrier. I'm going to be with you. So even if you're going to speak to the girls in English, I'm going to help you with those interactions and definitely like boost your chances, because I'm going to come in if there's a difficulty and say, hey, this is my friend, and explain at least the context in Russian to them.
But having seen, you know, and this is no, you know, we all do it, you know, we've all done that lads holiday back in the day of charging around a pack of sausages, you know. But Israeli guys I've seen, you know, and I'm not stereotyping everyone, but the Israeli guys I've seen here going around in packs chasing women, if you want the combined, like kind of, if even if Connor's USP isn't there necessarily because you understand the place, come out with us because we have an understanding of the bar scene. He knows a lot of the guys in the know with the bar stuff, so you're sitting on tables and I can do you the day game. So I'm going to teach you first and foremost not to be charging around on a pack of Israelis. It's one or two of you max.
Exactly.
And you can still pick up these girls, so it's not a frustrating lads.
So a lot of the Israelis, I think you're really referring to the non-Russian speaking Israelis who come, either because they're Jewish Israelis or Arab Israelis who are just not of Russian descent. Actually, I put that in my video, why you won't get beautiful women in Ukraine. I'll link it below and put it up in the card. But yeah, we had an instance where I was with one of my clients and there are two girls at Redline Club. It's a very cool beach club here.
A really loud one down there.
Yeah, and they
Pumping
came in
music.
and basically these girls had just sat down and they were already above them like
hawks.
Yes, not even hawks. I would say like a
Vulture.
lion. The guy was ready to pounce and devour them. And it turned out I actually knew the two girls because one of them I'd filmed her and put her on my Instagram the week before, so we'd actually interacted. And afterwards I went over to her. I didn't recognize her. And I chatted to her a little bit. She was like, yeah, you know, I just wanted to relax with my girlfriend. These guys are like basically annoying us. By the way, the guy spoke to them in English and the two girls said, we don't speak English. This girl had written me messages because afterwards...
In English?
In English, of course. Before, because she didn't know I spoke Russian when she saw my clips on Instagram. Basic social skills.
Basic social skills, you know, if a group of hot girls come in, you know, don't just leap on them from your kind of spot that you should go into a club. Don't do the thing of charging around. Just find a nice spot at the bar. Bit of social proof. Back to the bar. You're like surveying the place. You're with your friends. You look like you're having a good time, even if you're having a
100%.
shit time. Just basic stuff, and then maybe catch her eye, and then maybe kind of raise a glass, and if she holds eye contact, then go and say hello. Right? Just basic stuff, you know.
Yeah, so actually my client was with me, Philip. He commented about this in the video. He was just like amazed about how uncalibrated they were. Like the girls had only just got their butts basically on the chaise longue. These guys were above them, like they're about to, you know, like it's like the wild savannah and they've got their prey and they're just about to pounce and devour them like you see in wildlife videos. That's not what you want to be doing in any language, and the easiest way of course is the fact that they say, listen, I don't speak English.
Apart from
Please
maybe Brazil, because there is quite an animalistic culture there, and it's a
No, Brazil is very different, and actually James and I are going to run some joint programs together, both here in the former Soviet Union, so Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, but also in Brazil, because it's my favorite country and James has been there an awful lot. So if you're interested in that, actually, you should either write to James. I'm going to link his channel down below and you can go and contact him there. Go check out his website for the day game stuff. That's what he specializes in. So cold approach, like I said, again, go check out the videos that we made in St. Petersburg. Or contact me. You can do that by sliding into my DMs, which is slightly sleazy to say to you guys, but go and try it. Every day I get 5 slides into my DMs from guys. Not really what I was aiming for, but I see a male name like, okay, I hope it's a potential client. But yeah, so my handle there is Zara Experience, or write me an email at connorklein@zaraexperience.com, and all that will pop up on the screen as well, or it's down below in the description of the video. What's going to happen is I'm going to send you a short questionnaire. And if I think it's a good fit for our joint program, or if you just want to live the Zara experience here, maybe you're already proficient in day game or that's not of interest to you, then write me a message. And if I think it's a good fit, we're going to jump on a short strategy call together. And then we're going to fit out what's the right itinerary. I'm going to assess your strengths and weaknesses and what I think is the best itinerary and how I can help you the best. And then if it all works out, you could be here next weekend actually, because I'm going to be in Odessa with some clients. Could be another city in the former Soviet Union or in Brazil if we do the joint program together. And you'll be here and you'll live it and you'll have my energy and you'll get basically, you won't have to travel on your own. You won't have the language barrier, have to overcome it. You're not going to have to waste time figuring out where everything is because I'm going to bring you to the right places at the right time. We're going to have tables at the best clubs. You'll be hanging with my crew. If James were here, he's actually going to leave. You'd also be there, but we can arrange that.
Minsk, yeah,
he's off to Minsk.
It's the same circuit isn't it, in Europe the whole time. One thing I would add is a lot of guys in my experience, talking to guys and guys that travel, they either have the one thing, so they understand a city and a place like you do, but they are shit at cold approach. Yeah, or they are very good at cold approach, but they're kind of moronic in the fact they're not very good. Again, apologies, day game is great, getting on plane, but you've got a lot of the guys out there, they don't understand the culture, and they don't speak the language, so in my experience there's always something missing, and that's the gap we're trying to fill, that all-in package where you get basically, you can just be like, look, I've got a busy job, I want a week off, I want to learn day game, night game, have a really fucking cool experience, meet some really cool guys, because we're very selective about who you bring out. We typically will bring out the same personality types.
That's what we're looking for.
If you've got 4 introverts, we're not going to put them with 2 extroverts, right? So it's about moulding personality types as well.
Exactly, because this is not for everybody. Like learning day game, well, I think everybody should learn it, to be honest, after my experience with James. But
also, you were buzzing. I was like, how many? You look like you've done 17 grams of amphetamine. You're like, yes, you're absolutely
I was excited.
It. Yeah,
someone is
going to. It's amazing to see you.
I get to talk to 10 strangers on the street.
I get the hungover corner like this, and then I got them really jacked up. Like,
I was pretty hungover, but this got me going again. The idea was good. Well, it was basically like, I'm going to talk to 10 girls at least on the street who are going to be pretty that I'm interested in, and we're going to record it. Of course, I'm like super pumped about that. So yeah, as James was saying, that's going to be the combined package. It's not for everybody. The Zara experience is not for everybody. I realize that because I speak to more and more viewers on the phone or just they write to me, and I realize, like, if you're the kind of guy who is delusional, coming here thinking there's 10 Instagram models waiting on the tarmac for them, and you're a fat, uncharismatic, ugly, bald 6-year-old guy, and you really believe there are 10 Instagram models coming, you're going to be waiting in the tarmac. These girls are not desperate. They don't need your fat ass, basically. And if they did, some sheikh from the Emirates has already invited them and paid them probably 10 grand to come over anyway. So forget that delusion. Don't write to us, because it's not going to be for you. We're not going there's not going to be 10 dates lined up for you. You're going to come out with us. You're going to learn lifelong skills. We're going to provide you with the tools that you're going to be able to use even after the experience with us. You're going to be able to do that with your friends afterwards as well. You have to be willing to put in the work and develop as a man, and actually grow a pair of balls and actually approach women. Because I get these requests like, well, can you set me up with the dates with the models? Why? Like, for me, it's an interesting question, because like, why would they want to meet you? I don't even know you. So why would they go on a blind date? Of course, if you're partying with us and we've vetted you and think you're the right fit for it, of course
you've got to have your shit together as a man. I think that's the thing, and also it's not easy to dispel any misconceptions that when you do game abroad, whether it's day game or night game, there's some sort of element of pussy paradise. It's fucking not. If you go to a place like this with a high level of beauty and you do not speak the language and you do not know where to go out and game, whether it's during the day or the night, I'm not saying you're fucked, you might get a girl, but the odds are against you. Why do that when you've got 2 guys that specialise in this stuff, combining it and offering it to you, basically saving you a shitload of time and effort? And that's the USP, I guess.
Yeah,
and we're unashamedly saying it because Connor is a very good guy. I collaborate with very few guys in the industry. The industry I work in is actually full of charlatans, and so I'm very careful about who I work with, but he's a genuine character. He knows his shit, and I do as well, and so I'm not ashamed about saying what our USP is, because I'm confident in what we do, and we can provide guys with a fucking excellent experience, and also we're out living and breathing and stuff and having fun. It's not armchair shit. I mean, we're sitting recording this shit
in Salieri,
there we go,
in Palais Royal Garden beside the opera. And yeah, I guess that's all we need to say in this video, pretty much. If you want to live the Zara experience and do the game, with the two of the best in the industry, who are not charlatans, because I also noticed that as well. I have a lot of guys who want to collaborate. I get probably a message every 3 days from some either dating company or we'll say dating coach or pickup artist, and most of them, I just look at the videos and, I know how to edit stuff and make it look very exciting. but I also know from their style and the way they approach that, they're not getting the quality. Because that's one of the things, when they blur out the faces, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost left that in. It's kind of controversial. Like I had I've had some shit in the past from girls kind of finding out, and I've had to take down videos. But the reason I actually, typically with me or my students, leave the faces in, it's not ethically correct, but it's to show that they are attractive girls.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's the easy cut, as you said, the shortcut round it is just blur out. It's gonna start being blur out the entire body.
Exactly.
And then you just see this giant blur, and you're like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not a thing, girl. And he's like, no, but I use really big editing software. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
So
know. We digress
don't buy
massively.
into charlatans. That's basically. And you can watch. And I use Instagram, so you can actually see. I've actually started to be more candid about who I'm hanging around with, and you can see who I'm hanging around with every day. You can see our lifestyle here in places like Odessa and where we hang out, and the crew we hang around with. And if you're at the end of this long video again, it's obviously something you're interested in. So write me a message. Let's set it up. Let's have you here next weekend. I mean, you can make excuses for the rest of your life, or you can just
Get
write
on a
those-
fucking plane. You know,
get on
we
a
live
plane.
in a very good
Exactly.
time where you can just solve your problems by actually getting on a fucking plane. It's not
Exactly.
that
Come
hard.
here, get the 2 guys that you're going to need to make it an unforgettable experience, and we will see you here. All right, let's wrap it up. I actually took James. I was late, and see, the thing is, being Irish as opposed to 100% British, is that we're
I was
late.
born in Hong Kong, so I'm technically
Oh.
British, but I've got the element of the Chinese in there. I don't know how that affects timing, but
Well,
sure.
in Ireland, we're always late. Most people don't
the
realize.
stereotype?
Yes, definitely, we're late. Maybe it's just me, but I always felt growing up that we're always late, at least by half an hour. So he's got a date, and I probably pushed him way over this. Yes, I hope that's still going to work, because
see
she's
what happens with this.
supposed to be 15 minutes. Going to have a date at a little bit later at 8 o'clock, so I'm pretty good for it. Write us below about me and James what you think of this video, how you've gotten on using English in these countries, whether you think we're full of BS or whether it concurs with your experience. And of course, if you are not subscribed to this, you can just go and push those red subscribe buttons, or take some action and actually hit the notification bell so you get updated when we upload new content. And we will see you in the very next videos on both of our channels. Probably going to be from here in Ukraine. I guess did you record anything here? No.
Not this
Okay.
time.
Not this time. Okay. Well, you'll see him on his travels. He's going to go. Where are you going next? Minsk and
Minsk
then
and then Helsinki.
Helsinki.
That'll be cool.
So, do svidania, do pobачення. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.
SAR Experience.